Well, I did try to join the Navy, but Dad, I even went as far as getting my application forms for the Navy. But anyhow, Dad said he thought that there was a war coming and that I'd be out in the middle of the ocean and get sunk in the boat. So anyhow, he wouldn't hear of it. So anyhow, when when things got bad over in the Middle East, well then I joined the AIF, and that meant that I could be sent overseas, and I actually joined 4 going over in the Middle East. I did have one particular mate, and anyhow, he had his foot broke down with the marching. His foot broke down, and the bones in his foot collapsed, and he finished up out in Greenslopes Hospital. That's the army hospital in those days, and he finished up in there, and then I went to say goodbye to him, and he was in a terrible state then because he wanted to come with us. He wanted to come with us because he'd been with me all the training and that. But anyhow, that wasn't to be. So I didn't see him then again until years later. One time, the nearest I got to any bombs was that one time when they had a searchlight, and it was an enormous, great big searchlight like that. I don't know how big it was, but anyhow, it's about 5 or 6 feet, I think, by the look of it, about 5 or 6 feet across. And they came in, and they set up there, and we could see them setting up there, and it was a particularly big searchlight, and we had the slit trenches there, and we were down in the slit trenches, and these planes came over, and we were watching them, and because they're in the searchlights, they had them up on the searchlights, and you could see them coming in, and they started their bombs just, I suppose, could have been one plane with their bombs, and they started bombing there, and they come right over, and they stopped just at the searchlight. They stopped there, and then started off at the other side. What a wonderful thing it was. We used to go into Port Moresby, and we were just curious, I suppose. We used to go in there, and before we got there, the militia were there, and I don't know how long before that they were there, but when we got there, everything was a shambles. The radio station was flattened. It was no more. They must have just picked on that and bombed it. And then the store in the the general store there, they had boots and socks and clothes and everything else. The militia used to just go through that, and if they found something to their size, they'd take it, and if they didn't, they'd chuck it out like that, and that was like a shambles there. But anyhow, the only thing they didn't bomb was a big palatial, public house, and that was a biggest one in Port Moresby, and that wasn't touched. So whether they were thinking about what they could, and I think they picked their targets for it because they used to think, well, we'll have to make use of it later on. So anyhow, they used to pick and choose. I can't go by without mentioning the light horse people, and they were over at Milne Bay or Boona or Gona, I don't know which. I never asked them. I wasn't talking to them much, but they used to come, and they'd come and they'd carry with the foodstuffs and that. They'd have sacks on the horses' backs, and they'd lead them along, and they used to have a bag full of chaff and that there just for a few days. But they came from over the top of the ridge, the Owen Stanleys. We used to sleep in the things there, and at first, before we had the tents, before we had the tent set up, we used to have just the nets, just the mosquito nets there, and they were put up from one tree to the other, and anyhow, it's it was in the long grass. It was in the grass about 2 feet high, and kunai grass. And anyhow, the mosquitoes were thick. They were thick as anything. Atterbury was the order of the day. I don't know what they've got now, but Atterbury, Atebrin, Atterbury. And some of the fellows, they used to be a little bit cocksure, you know. They thought, oh, it wouldn't happen to me. But anyhow, they used to. We used to get it issued every morning, and these Atterbury tablets, one tablet at a time, and I was very religious about taking mine. I took it every day, and some of the others, they used to with the malaria, they used to be there in the daytime. They'd be in the middle of the day with the hot sun, and that, and underneath a blanket, and they be jumping up and down, all the rest of it. So anyhow, I don't know whether they ever got rid of it. I don't know whether they ever got rid of the malaria.